about, now this comes out of, this whole set of power points come out of Roman Fox, human physiology, because he does a better job of simplifying this information compared to your book. So he does it all in this one PowerPoint like this. In the first half of that whole thing, it's mainly just talking about this. Is that you can mouth close? Oh, I thought somebody told you to keep quiet. Like years ago, they were tied to George shut and the person dies and loved it. It's always that. So this is the other day. We talked divides the central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, peripheral, cranial, and spinal nerves. And then we compose of neurons and glial cells. These fire, this is your impulse, this is your true nerve cells, and this is the supporting cells. So this is just reviewing what we did the other day. Past that. So we're going to find, what do they do? Well, they respond to stimulus. They conduct chemical, so they conduct chemical electrical reactions. So in other words, the chemicals move, such as sodium, potassium, chlorine, create an electrical current in millivolts that fires down the nerve. When it gets to the end point, it's a transmitter, that's what crosses. So it says, oh, this is same to you. Okay? So most cannot divide, but they can repair themselves. So most of your nervous system, once you damage it, that's it. It's gone, especially in the central system. Peripheral will repair central, and now the PowerPoint stops working again. It's a wonderful world of CCRI electronics. So we know they're made up of three general parts of neuron: a body, dendrites, axon. So most of the stuff we're going to talk about is this. This is where your action potentials are. So when a nerve fires down the nerve, it creates an action potential. And we're going to learn that nerve is all or none response. If I don't get this nerve to get to a certain number, it's not firing. Simple as that. It's like, don't waste my time. I know we're not going to get an end result, so don't bother. That's kind of what the nerve is saying. So nerves are more like female nature than male nature, right? I have a headache. They're how to make them excitatory. So their sodium potassium pump doesn't want to work all the time. It's kind of staying instead of -70 more to -90. The male stays like at 55 or ready to fire. So pretty much this is what we're going to be getting into. So there's three parts. We talk about the helix, where the firing is on, actually then traveling down the axon, then the end point. So that's all the physiology. And once you get that done, the rest just becomes back to basic anatomy. So this part of it still is this basic anatomy. Bringing some phys with it. Now, here's your two kinds. We saw this the other day. We know that this one here is motor, this is sensory. Because we talked about, that this sits in the dorsal root, this sits within the spinal cord. And we're going to show you another picture of it happening. So the current would fire out of here down to the muscle, coming back, loop here, then go into the spinal cord. That's kind of how it works on the sensory side. Interneurons don't have axons. They're just interneuronal bodies and dendrites. They just communicate that way. Okay. Are you sick? Is that why you're living? Oh, you feel cold. I thought you were sick. If something's different, I'm going to bother the hell out of you. But axons are vary in length. from a few millimeters to a meter. So when you think of L5 or S1 nerve root all the way down to your foot, that's one axon. One motor axon, one sensory axon. Pretty neat. It's a long, continuous axon all the way down. And there's many axons within the bundle of that one nerve. So you get a sciatic nerve has many different bundles of axons in there, each one with specific functions. So even though we simplified it to a white and a black wire, but instead of having just a solid copper piece inside, you're going to have multi-little wires inside, like if you cut the wire of a lamp. It's all that little grain wire. Each grain or strand has a specific function. Vibration, light touch, deep pressure, pain, proprioception, the type of proprioception. So each one will have a different specific function. So they all vary in the degree that they do. They're always covered with myelin. We said that until they get to the node of Renvier. So they jump, fire down node to node. Into-node firing is how they work. If they grade, they don't work that way because we really don't have two axons to fire down. It sucks to sit up. So here they are again, the node of Renvier. So this would start here at the healing and then fire. Boom. Bang, bang, down. Not plowing through. That would be way too slow. So the thicker and the more myelin I have, the faster I become. I can travel 100 meters in 1 second. That's quick in milliseconds. Where the gray fibers, because they're interneuronal bodies, would travel 1 meter in 1 second. That's still pretty quick when you consider the human body to be a couple of meters, that's it. So within a second or two, it's traveled through the whole body, through the slow fibers. The fast fibers, forget it, you're talking milliseconds, and it's there. So either system, when you put it to the human body, is a quick system. One's faster than the other. So the more myelin they have, the faster it is. So we have the basic classifications. We have sensory, motor, and interneurons, or association. Like the association area of your brain is where you integrate your information. Decide what the hell to do with it. So on the sensory side, we conduct impulses away from the CNS. I mean, towards the CNS. Screw that up. So it goes from PNS to CNS. You touch something hot. And it really, even though you're feeling it here, it's the brain that's feeling it to tell you there's an issue. And the funny part is, though, if we did brain surgery on you, I could poke your brain, you don't even know I'm touching you. No idea. The brain itself has no sensation to anything. Touch, pressure, anything. And it's pretty amazing to hold a human brain, because human brain weighs between 2 to 3 pounds in your hand, and it looks like, feels like a cool blob of clay in your hands. And that was the person. So we removed that out of the cadaver in semester 2 and put it away from neuroanatomy and made slices and learned it that way. It was like, wow. It's like if I take your brain and put it in her, she knows you, even though their body's not the same. It's like taking the processor out of here, put it in another computer, that computer becomes this computer. I don't have to reprogram. Take it all out, put it there, the program's there already. So the higher principles of your brain make you. Yeah, they play, yeah, but people don't live. Yeah, they try to use it first. So the people that don't like it do it. So on the motor side, whenever the information comes in, now we react to it, move your hand, that's the motor. In here is where we integrate. Do we interpret the information? It's like we said the other day, where this thing is brain dead right now, and you're banging on the keyboard, and nothing happens. For some reason, these things are going in sleep mode while they're PowerPointing, but just the mouse works. So, but in other words, when you touch the keyboard, that's the sensory input to your computer. when we enter the search engine, now it's processing. That's the integration of the computer. When it spits out onto your screen, that's the response back to you. That's the motor response of the computer. So every time you're playing with your computer, think of these three things, and you'll totally remember. You'll never forget. Sensory, interneuron, motor. When's the only time that doesn't happen? It's in a reflex arc. You don't have that. You go right from sensory to motor. Okay, so there's no brain involved. So the somatic motor neurons, responsible for reflexes, voluntary muscle control, the autonomic system, all involuntary. Target smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, glands. We already said this. Then we break it into sympathetic and parasympathetic. So we're just reviewing what we did the other day. The other day we put it in a little more plain English. This way here, they're throwing in the nice sugar-coated words to make it sound impressive. But you kind of know what you're talking about because you're using words nobody else can understand. So fight, flight, normal functions, rest, digest. So luckily the body kind of stays in this mode the majority of the time, and only shifts here periodically. The only thing that's constantly shifting back and forth between the two modes is your heart and blood pressure, constantly back and forth. Because every time you move, it affects it. So the heart never stays in one rhythm. It's constantly shifting itself, minute by minute. Took a pulse 5 different times, you're going to get 5 different pulses. Never be exactly 60 every time. You're taking an average. Okay? So this function is showing you to categorize it, so this would be what? This is a sensory, this is a motor, this is the autonomic. Notice on the sensory one, the ganglion's out here, the cell body, not in here. That's an interneuron. Notice on the motor one though, the cell body's within. So that's why you have a dorsal root ganglion and you don't have a ventral root ganglion. So you identify that stuff in lab, and someone says the ventral root ganglion. I know you really don't know what you're talking about. You really have not studied, because there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. You created something that's not there. Well, you were so intelligent, you found it. But we're going to go with the lab and not the news. You didn't study. Okay, you crammed. Why do we have this in the autonomic system? Why do you think? Why do I have 2 ganglions versus 1? 1, here, 2 ganglionic systems to respond. This is a single ganglion that says, why? Well, because skeletal muscle only will always use one neurotransmitter, acetylcholine. But when I'm using the autonomic system, there's different neurotransmitters. So my initial one coming out, to start this probably was acetylcholine. When I get here now, to get to there, I'm going to change. So the acetylcholine cross, it's either going to hit an inhibitory or an excitatory switch. And when it hits the excitatory switch, then my next neurotransmitter would be norepinephrine, which is known as adrenaline, versus the adrenergic, cholinergic reactions in the body. Makes sense? Yes, it's boring, I know, but does it make sense? The nervous system is very boring until you get to actually studying the cranial nerves and see what they do. But this stuff here is like, okay, I can't sleep tonight, so I'm going to read this in my book. Your book's very good for putting you to sleep. You can't sleep. You're about by page 3, you're out like a light, like a boring novel. So nerves and bundles of axons located outside the CNS. They're mostly composed of sensory and motor. It's called mixed. Mixed. Mixed doesn't mean it's confused. It has both fibers. Both, not both. Both. Not Rhode Island talk. Both. Okay. So Then we have some cranial nerves only have sensory fire. You're going to see that. You're going to get 4 that are just sensory, 4 that are just motor, and 4 that have mixed. And we, wow, fascinating, man. Right? Think of olfactory and optic. That's just what? Bless you. That was 5 and 7. That's why he sneezed. How about stenatory reflex? Pluck a hair out of someone's throat if they sneeze. 5 and 7. He stimulated both. 5. Sensory. 7 is the motor. Now, what about? So why do we say well? Certain cranial nerves, like 3 is just motor, and 1 and 2 is just sensory. Well, to sense a smell, I don't need motor with that. To sense a vision, I don't need motor with that. But to move the eye around and control the pupil, I need motor. That's 3. To move the eye in another plane, there's 4 and there's 6. So 3, 4, and 6 would just be motor, but 3 would have parasympathetic because it's controlling the pupil. You will learn all that stuff in a few weeks. It will slow it down, okay? And then a bundle of axons in the CNS is called a tract. So you get major tracts in the body. One is cortical spinal tract. That's one of your major myelinated tracts of the body that you see develop in a baby. It's a very fast sensory motor, very fast. Cortical spine, from the cortex to the spine. To the knee, moving through cerebellum and the brain stem. So quick. You have another one called dorsal column. That's all myelinated. For balance, equilibrium. Then you have for light touch, deep touch, vibratory sense, the ventral and lateral spinal thalamic tracts. They're involved with that. So whenever you neurologically test someone, you test those 4 tracts all the time. Just watching them walk and shake their hand, test them. So you can pick up right away neurologically something wrong with someone. Then you go through the motions to make it feel like they're getting their money's worth. But you can't already work up a diagnosis in your head as you just walk in and see them walk into you. Always watch a patient walk. Because you know if they're telling the truth or they're a liar. And always watch them walk to their car if you don't trust them. Because they come in like, then they go to their car, they're like, because they don't know how to work. So now you know, next time I see him next week, no one know how to work. We're fine, you go back to work. Either that or go get a new doctor. I'm done with you. Dr. B and Dr. Summerall. This is going back years ago, every December I had the same Dominican patients come in to me. Oh, I didn't know how to work. I remember, really? Okay. So you're going to follow back up next week? Oh no, I'll be in the Dominican Republic for a month. Well, I can't give you a note on the work for 4 weeks if I'm not seeing you every week to back that note when you're collecting TDI, because they're going to order you fired. And they're going to say you're not here. And then I'm in trouble, because we frauded the system. And they don't do much to you, but then I could lose my license, so the answer is no. I said, just take a leave from work, and that's it. Oh, well, life sucks, then you die. So we have, these are the neuroglial cells again. So we remember this one from, right? Yes? Mm-hmm. Look at its other name. Neurocytes. In other words, I call them myelin. And what do we say myelin is? Like an insulator of the nerve, made primarily of fat. We have fat nerves. That's my problem. My nerves are too fat. I don't need to lose weight. Can't lose weight on your nerve. Okay. Right? Big bone. And, like I said, fat falls in the marrow. The fat's around my nerve. That's my problem. I got too much fat around my nerve and in my bones. Can't do anything about that. Sorry. It's on my diet. Or I'm too short. I should have been 10 inches tall and that'd be the perfect weight. So there's different ways. Satellite cells, don't worry about that, we're not going to ask about that. But I want you to know the Schwann cell, because that's the one I gave you the other day. There'll be another one we're going to, so these are in the periphery. These are in the CNS. And those four, I want you to know. Now they've changed a little bit, but yes, it regulates external environment. It's controlling the blood supply, but it's also responsible for synapse formation in the development of nerve, and that's what we told you today. Nerve growth and synapse formation is what I want you to remember about the astrocyte that I told you Monday. The only new one we're adding here that you haven't seen is this, ependymal cells. They form CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. They're at this area called the blood-brain barrier. Ever hear of that? The 3 B's. Not the Better Business Bureau, but the blood-brain barrier in your head. It's not working today, huh? They sniff it and suffering. That's that time of year where coughs and all that shit comes around. No matter how you try to stay healthy, you always get sick. So, why do you think we have to have a blood-brain barrier? What is it not letting in? Bad people, that's why it's there in my brain. What do you think? Well, you know, this is why a lot of chemos don't work for brain cancers, because it can't penetrate. Blood-brain barrier won't let it in. So what's going to happen here? You've got blood vessels running, capillaries, arteries and veins running towards the blood-brain, towards these cells that sit in the ventricles of the brain, the 4 ventricles in the brain. And what's going to happen is they're going to pull out just the plasma, because we don't need the red blood cells, the white blood cells, the platelet. We don't need that. So in theory, it's really not the blood that feeds the brain, it's the CSF that feeds the whole central system. So that's plasma. And the 2 most main ingredients we want in there is oxygen and carbohydrate. But I have a carb-free diet. Well, that's why you're dumber than ever, because you're not having any energy going into your brain. Brain don't like to burn fats. It's definitely not going to burn proteins. You'd be dead by it. It's too hard for it to do it. It burns carbs. Brain needs a lot of ATP. Even when you're sleeping, your brain never stops working. What happens if your brain stops working? You're dead. You take that permanent dirt and that, and that's why it in the oven, and it's over. That's another way to put it. Right? At least it won't be cool. Like someone said, I don't like heat. Well, I'm not going to feel it, so it won't make a difference. I waste space, put you in something this big, and I can put you in there's more. Okay, so it's an important area, this blood-brain barrier, and this is very important. So it's not only going to bring nutrition and everything to keep supporting the central nervous system, but it takes waste away from it. So they actually test this stuff to see what's going on with you, with an infection or immune disease, MS. Right? They go in and test this. There's conditions where people get migraine because of the overproduction of CSF, and they got to tap it on you every 6 months. And read the pressure that you're pushing out. Pressure's over a certain number, there's too much of it, we're going to draw it out. So this is an auto-regulated tissue, meaning it'll produce CSF on its own. It doesn't need a way to tell. It just does it. You can tell by pressure gradients when it needs more or doesn't need more. So it's pretty unique, like the heart. It just flows ions around to make itself beat. I don't need a nervous system. I don't need an endocrine system to make me work. To make me work efficiently, I do. But to make me work, nope, I don't need it. Neither does this. So this lines the ventricles. When we learn to do the brain, you get the lateral ventricles, the 3rd and 4th. That's where all your CSF is made, and it floats the whole central nervous system, spinal cord and brain. Totally encompasses around it. When she did the video today, she lifted this layer up called the arachnoid, remember? And she said it's away from the dura because there's no fluid in there to keep it up. That would be that. So where would you find this? Subarachnoid space. We'll go into that when we do the meninges. So when they spinal tap you, that's what they go into. So, again, the microglia would protect. So we have protection. Now we need white blood cells. We have our own. Which is lineage of it. And the oligodendroid is going to form myelin. And the astrocyte is going to regulate the end part or the end plate of the nerve and blood supply and regrowth if it needs it. Okay? So now, here's what it looks like. All the pretty pictures. So colorful and gorgeous, isn't it? So it's showing you, these are the indental cells. This is the CSF. On this side would be the brain. Feeding in, taking information. So there's all these different cells all around it. But this is the important part right here, forming my, this is your, nothing's going in here. I don't want to go in, no. No way in hell. Stay away, Jose. You're not coming in. So it's showing you how it's made. And where's it getting it from? These. So it's blood plasma, people. Loaded with ions, biomolecules. 2T is oxygen and carbohydrate. High energy source the brain needs. Brain's always finding action potentials. Okay? So we good? So that's the same shot we have before myelin sheet and this. So that's pretty straightforward. The gap, so as we look at a nerve, the myelin sheet, so the myelin sheets in the same, so we will have gaps in them. And at the gap is where the action potential is land. So in other words, it doesn't fly down this way, it does this. And those nodes are known as the node of Ranvier. So I would understand node of Ranvier. They're left open for a reason. Have we seen this one already? I hate this thing. This. Then again, we're going to have myelin and CNS. So you're going to have the white areas of the brain and the white areas of the spinal cord. And then you have the gray areas. Where you have white, you have these bundles of nerve called axons. So you have these bundles of tracks. Where you have the gray, you don't. You don't have axons. You have cell bodies which are dendrites meeting one another. Right? It's gray. It doesn't need the white because it's not. And they're slower. So the center part of your spinal cord, center part of the brain, is where the gray matter is. That's what gets affected in Parkinson's. The gray area. The person's shaking all over the place and has trouble walking, stopping. Let's think of Michael J. Fox. That's him. He had it from a young age. What's the neurotransmitter that's missing in Parkinson's? Dopamine. So they give you L-Dopa. It makes you dopey. No, L-Dopa is what you need, but after a while, even the receptor cells that need it don't work, so eventually you do die from the disease. Okay? So that's what goes on here. That's there. Skip over it. Skip over it. Alright, so here's what I want to show you this. When you damage the peripheral system, it'll heal. You do have neurotrophins that come in to heal it. When you damage the central system, it doesn't grow new tissue. It scars itself. So you will grow new tissue in the peripheral. You damage a nerve, it'll heal itself and grow. Do it in the central system, spinal cord and brain, no. That's why we're born with so many cells in our brain. Quite a few. So what happens to you is when they die, they die. thank God we only use 7% of the brain. So you got 93% there to go to, because every time you take heavy pain meds, alcohol, anything toxic to the body, you kill them. They die. Huh? What?
Because they said when you take toxins, I've heard a few people refer to wet brain from someone who's drinking for an extended decades.
Well, what brain is it? Because you kill all of the functioning nerve cells you need. Not only you kill that, you kill your liver too. So one of the other things to take is, they come in all nice and jaundiced. Yep. It was weird though, because usually, what's apoptosis mean? Apoptosis, what's that mean in that term? Cell death. So other cells in the cell cycle will regenerate DNA and go through mitosis and do what they have to do. These don't. When nerve cell gets to its end, it dies. That's it. They don't regenerate. Then you heal with scarring. And that prevents the regeneration. So in the central system, you damage it, you lose it. That's the point to get out of this. So in the peripheral system, no, it will heal and regenerate. In the central system, no. This is why they're having such difficulty with helping spinal cord lesions, even with all the technology we have, including stem cell and genetic re-engineering. They still can't get it to grow. There's like a natural inhibitory process in the body that stops it from happening. It should be those inhibitory proteins. They haven't found a way to shut that off. Sure they will, but probably not my lifetime, your lifetime. You've got more time in life. So this is showing you the regeneration of the peripheral system. That at point E, you're back to normal. So if they cut nerve and suture it back together, it will regenerate and grow back. Okay, so it will, you can regenerate a spinal nerve or cranial nerve, but not a central nervous system itself, meaning spinal cord or brain. Once you lose it, you've lost it. So neurotrophins are what you know as your growth. So neurotrophins in the baby are growing the nervous system. They don't need to know all this fancy crap. Is that? So the neurotrophins, neural growth factor, will create growth. In the adult, all it does is maintain. Look what it tells you. Maintenance of the sympathetic ganglia and regeneration of sensory neurons. That's it. Nothing in there about the brain or spinal cord. Nothing at all. Sorry. Like I said, but then we have a lot of them. This is why, people have strokes and those rehab them and work in them. We stimulate areas of the brain to take over those pathways. So that may be why it's designed the way it is, because there's a lot of excess space in there. It's like when you buy a computer and you're using 1 gigabyte, I think it's got 50 million gigabytes. You're not using all of it. So the computer never gets slow, kind of keeps working perfectly. It's got a lot of space. It's like you don't study, a lot of space in your head. It's not taking the knowledge to fill up that space. So like I said, too bad one USB phone is plugged in, all the information's there. So the astrocyte, which is usually the terminal lens, that's kind of like the most abundant wheels. And again, it's going to interact between neurons and blood, and neuron to neuron and blood. So interacting with neurons is telling me that's synapse. So it maintains the synapse. Like we told you the other day, synapse formation, nerve growth. That's what it's responsible for. And by maintaining maintaining the proper blood supply and everything it needs at the endpoints, it keeps it alive. So each one of these supporting cells have specific functions and are all needed. Okay, so they're going to put nice grade names on things as we go into this more and more and more. So now that we've done this, astrocyte function, blood-brain barrier. Those we skipped that because I don't really care about all those little things it's doing. We're going to ask you that. But the blood-brain barrier is very important in one. The bottom line tells you one major thing is that it creates problems with chemotherapy or brain disease because many drugs cannot penetrate this blood-brain barrier. It's a true wall. It's like this wall here. On this side is the blood supply. On that side where the brain is sitting is the CSF. And this is not going through unless I want you to go through.
So is that like when rabies and other bacteria pass the blood-brain?
Well, they can get past.
It's very difficult to actually treat that.
Right, because once it gets into the brain, usually the person is kind of screwed. Because most of the drugs they use can't get in. So they make an entrance because they create damage and harm. That's how they make their entrance into it. But so it's telling you to get tight junctions. There's no leakage. So we have tight junctions also in the GI tract, and there's no leakage. So what the hell is that? Is a leaky gut syndrome. That irritates the crap out of me when I hear that. When I'm reading it out. Can't leak, or you will die. You will die of sepsis into your body. That means all the crap in your intestines just go into the body. If there was this true thing of leaky gut syndrome, just like this, you would die if this let anything through. You wouldn't live. So the key thing, the blood-brain barrier, that barrier doesn't let anything through unless it's allowed to come through, and it's only going to do it through one way, transcellular. The cell itself takes it in and then passes it through. Not in between the cells. It's not happening that way. Tight junctions. No movement there so they can be fused together like that cement wall. You're not going through that wall. Run into it all you want. Ain't going anywhere. Okay? So just remember that. Okay, so there's the key. So why is it a problem? Of course, to treat certain diseases, we can't get the drug into the brain to do it. That's the key of the blood-brain barrier. Now, let's go back to the ATX now. Yay! So this is this. So the point is, if you understand this in every phase of it, you know all this. So, to make it make sense. So, we do actually have voltage that comes up, millivolts. And these millivolts can be read. So, what we're doing, we're taking chemical activity and turning it into electrical activity. So, certain ions, sodium, potassium, chlorine, create a charge that's going to fly down the nerve. And the only way it works is if there's energy to make this happen. So we're going to learn that certain things will be inhibitory, certain things will be excitatory. So those are going to be the terminology we use most all the time, excitatory and inhibitory. So most the nerve in general is an excitatory type of tissue. In only certain phases it becomes inhibitory. So when you get, in other words, what happens when you fatigue a muscle? Why is the muscle fatigued? What is happening at the cellular level? What two things you think are depleted?
Calcium.
And ATP. We just can't produce it fast enough anymore, or push the calcium back into the sarcomere. It just, well, same thing here. When it gets to a point that the ATP runs out and you can't maintain the sodium potassium pump, the nerve is hyperpolarized. In other words, it's not firing again. So you can fatigue our nerve. You can fatigue out anything. The only thing you really can't is the heart. Why? Because the way the calcium channels work in the heart. When you're trying to overtax it, calcium just goes back to where it wants to be, and the heart stops, goes back to its own thing. So that's why you can't put the heart in tetany, but you can put skeletal muscle in tetany. Because of the calcium channels, the way they run in the heart. That prevent it, okay? So at rest is a high concentration of potassium inside the cell and sodium outside the cell. That's at rest. So that's at our resting membrane potential. Because you're going to find we have leaky channels, voltage channels, and sodium potassium pump. There's 3 ways this stuff moves. We always have leakage, and with leakage, well, we're not balanced. We're sitting at -90. And at -90, I can't be at resting membrane potential. I can't even initiate an action potential, because when I hit it, it doesn't do anything. So by using sodium potassium pump, we maintain a resting membrane potential of -70. -70. So keep that in your mind, it's at -70. When we start stimulating the system, this really sucks. And let's give up the numbers. Hey. So, in other words, what's going to happen when we stimulate this system and get it going? So when we depolarize it, we stimulate it. So what's happening here now, we go from resting membrane potential to threshold. When we're at threshold, once this nerve hits -55, action potential happens, it fires. And it's always known as the all or none response. So if I hit it where it only goes to -60, or even -58, it's not firing. I didn't hit resting membrane potential. So whatever stimulus hits it has to be strong enough to bring it to -55. Once it does, now sodium's going to pour in, rush in here, potassium rushing out, and we climb. So we depolarize the nerve until we hit +30. Alright, so I'm going to summarize everything. So that's what this thing is showing. Until it goes to +30. So we depolarize. That's stimulatory or excitatory. When we're at -90, that's inhibitory. Nothing's going to happen. So if I don't maintain resting membrane potential, the nerve can never fire. That's the point we're getting across here. And the only way I can maintain that is through resting membrane potential is through what? Sodium potassium pump. Because you have leaky channels, which the leaking creates this, but the pump creates this. And the activation of everything creates that, to fire this. Blowing the sodium in one direction, potassium in the other. Then until it gets to a positive number 30, then that's it. Now the nerve has to repolarize itself. It's fired to its max. Almost like a muscle twitch. What's a muscle twitch? Muscle goes full contraction, right back to relaxation. Twitch. What's the difference between twitch versus temporal summation? All these fancy terms that are in your study guide. What is that major difference? Well, in the twitch, the muscle goes total back to relaxation phase, right? In temporal summation, does the muscle go back to total relaxation phase in between contractions? The answer is no. It stair steps itself till it gets the maximum, and then it goes into what? Unfused tetany, which is still trying to relax itself, to finally it's fused tetany, and then you blow the muscle out, fatigue. Well, the nerve kind of does the same thing. We bring it up to its max, finally the nerve can't keep up with the demand because of the ATP, and potassium rushes in, sodium rushes out, we change the polarity along with chlorine to make this more negative, and the nerve goes back. So when we're depolarizing a nerve to reach plus 30, that would be known as a positive feedback loop. So I'm going to show you that. So I'm summarizing everything I want to show you. This one picture shows everything that's in all these PowerPoints. So when we're depolarizing the nerve, that is positive feedback. What do we mean? What's the difference between positive feedback versus negative feedback? What? I can't hear you talking. I'm going in the same direction. Right. So I'm going in the same direction of the stimulus. That's positive feedback. Negative feedback, I'm going in the opposite direction of the stimulus. And that's how most of our systems work. So this does two things in the nervous system. Because once it hits its maximum depolarization, now it shifts to negative feedback and moves away from it to become more negative. So when you're repolarizing, that would be, a negative feedback loop. But when I'm depolarizing, it's a positive feedback loop. Because I'm moving towards the target, this is moving away from the target. So negative, moving away from the stimulus. Positive, moving towards the stimulus. What are the other two things that are positive in the body? Blood clotting.
Contractions.
Right, birth, giving birth. Doesn't end until it gets to its end point. Same thing here. This don't stop until it gets to its end point, which is positive 30. Then what happens here? It shifts. Potassium pours in, chlorine also jumps in the picture, the negatives thing back, and finally it goes all the way back to hyperpolarization, where it can't fire. And it's regenerating itself to come back to resting membrane potential. So at this point, you regroup an ATP and everything to bring this thing back to maintain the sodium potassium pump. So even when you're at rest, sleeping, your whole nervous system is using energy because it's always sitting at -70. Because if it didn't, you wouldn't be able to fire it. So when you make the total firing of the nerve, you create an action potential. You can see it. So that's all this whole thing when you're talking about gets summarized in this one picture with this graph. And it'll show it. And because it's giving off electrical current, we can read it and graft it, such as EMGs. Or EEGs, ECGs, that's what they're all reading. They're reading the voltage at what's happening coming off the electrical change. So depolarization will occur when positive ions enter the cell, which is sodium. Hyperpolarization occurs when positive ions leave, such as potassium, and negative ions enter the cell. And then we go into depolarization. So in other words, depolarization is excitatory, hyperpolarization inhibitory. That's the key thing there. So when those ions reverse from what they're doing, you inhibit. So when I depolarize the nerve, it fires. When I repolarize it, it is inhibitory. It's going back to its resting state. Understand? Good. No, so we have ion gauge. So what happens here? We have leakage gauge which go on. Then we have sodium potassium pump to take care of those. But voltage gates happen. When I get to a certain volt, this shuts off the sodium and opens for potassium. That's what we mean by voltage gates. When the voltage gets to a certain number, it changes the gates. So you have gates that are volted for sodium, gates that are volted for potassium. And when I shut off the sodium and blow the potassium back in, well now we're going to repolarize the cell. So that's all voltage means. Voltage regulates this channels also. So if I need to move more, I just don't have to just depend on the ATP, the sodium potassium pump. I can also have these other channels that at certain volts will open up more for potassium or sodium or shut them off. That's all we mean by a voltage gate. Leakage gate just leaks because the chemical's small enough, the ion small just leaks through. That just keeps happening. Potassium levels just keep seeping. So that's the issue. So we need, to have a sodium potassium pump to balance it more, to keep the nerve at a certain level. So the numbers you're going to keep in your head is negative 90, I can't fire. I'm inhibitory. The negative 70, I'm at what? I'm ready, the cell's polarized to react, right? When it gets to negative 55, I'm at threshold. Once I go above that, now the nerve depolarizes until it hits positive 30. And then it repolarizes and goes back to negative 90, then brings itself back to 70. And it does it over and over and over again. And it does it all the way down to the axon. So it starts at the helix and then travels down the axon. And eventually gets to the end of the axon where it's going to what? Stimulate a neurotransmitter. So when we finish the axon, we get the neurotransmitters. So the voltage gate channels again, it's the same thing we said. So you're going to see how they interact, let things pass through, or don't let things pass through, depending on what the voltage is. So at around positive 30, the voltage gated potassium channel is open, potassium runs out of the cell, following electrochemical gradient. This makes the cell repolarize back to potassium equilibrium potential. So this is why when potassium is depleted in the body, you don't have nerve fiber. So when people are on diuretics, one of the electrolytes they love to lose is potassium. So that's going to affect how the person reacts. So sodium and potassium, sodium is more abundant, so you have more of it. Potassium is less abundant, but it's important. Potassium is an easy electrolyte to lose. So usually when you push sodium out of a person with diazides, you also lose potassium. So you eat a banana a day, eat tomatoes, raisins, they're rich in potassium. And then you can have too much, which isn't good either because it screws this all up. So action potential. When all this finally happens and you fire, when you go all the way around from depolarization to you have an action potential. So when you hit negative 55 and we get this positive feedback loop, causes an overshooting membrane potential to reach 30, that's depolarization. You depolarize the nerve. So when you depolarize a nerve, it fires. The wording don't make sense, I understand. So you're on this side of the loop. Once we hit positive 30 and go, so it's showing you here, now from positive 30 where the sodium channel is closed, potassium channel is open back up, what's going to happen here, we go into a negative feedback loop and we repolarize the membrane. So a depolarized membrane is excitatory, a repolarized membrane is inhibitory. It's not going to fire. So that's on each side of the curve. This is repolarized negative feedback, depolarized positive feedback. So when you're trying to go back down to negative 90 to get back to 70, the nerve has to rebuild itself, re-chemical itself back. Okay? Makes sense? So there's a lot of gibberish in there, but the plain English of it is just going from negative 55 to 30 and back down. And when you complete the loop, you made an action potential. It fired. It's like a muscle twitch. It fired. You can see it. It's visibly see, you can trace it, you can trace it. But until you hit a certain threshold level, it don't happen. And when you're climbing the hill, positive feedback. When you're falling down the hill, negative feedback. So you're going to realize physiologist works on certain things. You know, surface area, permeability, and feedback loops. That summarizes physiology. And there's only two major permeabilities we talk about: calcium and sodium and potassium. Those are the major things that we get involved with when you're dealing with nerve and muscle. Everything else is like secondary. And you're starting to see that you can simplify this into that.
So all the slides is just saying what that's doing.
What that picture shows. So if you can draw that and you can explain it, you know it. So to practice this stuff, draw that curve. And it goes on the helix and it travels down the node. Each node of Renvier is doing this. Each one's making an action potential to fire it down the nerve. Starts here, ends there. And you fire the whole nerve. So it's like dominoes. Kick one, they all fall down. So once the helix starts the action potential, it'll fire all the way down the nerve unless the nerve's damaged and doesn't let it cross a certain point.
So on the nerve, you know how you said it like bumps over
Right.
and over.
Right.
That's what it's doing?
Right. It's doing this at each one of those.
Okay.
And it reads that. And it's and what are you reading? You're reading electrical current. That's what gets read on the oscilloscope or the face of the computer. That's what it's seeing. It sees the electrical current. So our bodies do produce electricity. So you can generalize it that means action potential. Or keep it difficult into your type of thinking, and then none of it makes any sense. So here it is right here. There's this right here. That's telling you what's happening along the way. The gates are work, you know, in each color. So we have the depolarization stimulus to kick it there. This is negative 55. And it goes on. So if you can explain this graph and what's happening along the way to sodium and potassium, then you know it. The pump is maintaining 70. The stimulus pushes you to negative 55. Once you hit there, bang, the process begins. The gated channels do what they're supposed to do. The gated channel is going to open to push the sodium first. So there we go. Sodium in. Right? Potassium out. Make it more negative. Because you're pushing 3 sodiums to 2 potassiums. That's why it changes the current.
To me, when you kind of explain that to me for a second, I think you may have just said it, but I wasn't good. So, the way it kind of works is that when the sodium comes in,
Yeah,
we have
potassium.
sodium and potassium on this.
Yes.
It's
Potassium
it
goes out
reaches
here. This
plus
is
30. Once it
potassium's
reaches
going
plus
out
30,
here.
the potassium gates open, and
Right.
it goes down to the
Close down the sodium gates, potassium gates open, and let it flow
and
out.
then during the healing phase, the sodium potassium comes to resets it so that
Resets it down at the bottom.
yes.
So that says it all. So the gated channel here is going to do what? The gated channel here is going to set down what? In this phase here. In the yellow phase. It's going to shut down the potassium and let more sodium flow. Okay, so the sodium flows to change the permeability of the membrane to more positive. When it meets its maximum potential, now I close the gates on sodium and let the potassium flow out again. And at the same time, chlorine flows in, making the membrane more negative. So remember, chlorine, they're not showing you, but chlorine's also in the picture. Like we showed you here, chlorine is also pouring in. So this is going to make, at the membrane, so if you had a membrane here, so right at the membrane itself, where you're here, you're making it positive. Then eventually, and under here is negative. Then eventually we change that to the positive and the negative here, and that's when we're in that inhibitory phase at the membrane of the cell. But what it's doing, as it jumps over and hits the next node, well, then this starts all over again at that node, and then at that node, and then at that node, so it finally gets down to the end point, and it hits the right neurotransmitter, and bang, I kick that neurotransmitter across the synapse, to stimulate a muscle or another nerve or an organ or whatever. That's what happens. So it becomes as simple as that one picture, depolarization of the axon. Then it'll go to repolarization there. And so we're going to stop at that. Now, next class on Wednesday, I'm going to hold it like a review of all that muscle crap you guys are having trouble with. So next Wednesday, we're not doing anything new. It'll be review. Then the following Monday's your test. So it'll be 2 weeks before we come back to this. But this is the PowerPoint we're going to continue with. Because we're not going to go into the detail that your book does.